Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So it is the start of a new year, so let's have a look back at the old year. So this is my monthly roundup of data from DappRadar. So this is looking at the daily active unique wallets over a whole bunch of blockchain games. So there's probably several hundred sort of live games across the sort of 50 blockchains that DappRadar tracks. Most of them have very little activity. That may be because those games are set up that people can play them, without interacting with the blockchain. Sort of depends a little bit how the game is designed. Some games are fully on chain, most games are not. So anyway, that's sort of the caveat. Basically, looking at some broad trends over the last 12 months. What do we have here? So in red we have Splinterland, a trading card game, been going for a number of years, running on the Hive blockchain. Effectively, that's its own blockchain, a fork of the Steam blockchain. And Splinterland started the year about 300,000 daily active unique wallets, rose to getting on for 400,000. Had this big drop off in sort of June when it switched its reward structure to reward more consistent, higher skilled play from players who had larger decks. So this basically sort of reset how people were getting rewarded in the game. There was a 2-week reward cycle, and you got rewarded with cards and tokens every 2 weeks, depending on your place on the leaderboard. And that, combined with Splinterlands being a deterministic card game, meant it's a game that's quite easy to run bots on. And this big drop here is what happens when you change the reward structure on a game that has a lot of bots. So we can see here that basically the broad assumption here is 2/3 of the accounts here playing Splinterlands earlier in the year were bots. They all went away, actually went to under 100,000 daily active unique wallets when that change happened. You can see it's a very sort of sudden drop because obviously bots cost compute time, and if you can't get the sort of rewards out, then you start losing money, so people switch those off quite quickly. So it has recovered since then. Partly I think that's because it has encouraged more sort of players to play, and partly because probably some of the bots have worked out sort of new ways of making money from that. So it's quite, all these games have quite a lot of volatility for various reasons, but Splinterlands is now sort of sometimes still peaks over 200,000, but somewhere around 150,000 daily active unique wallets. Again, it tends to have this sort of peak every 2 weeks because that's the reward structure that people or bots tend to play a lot more towards the end of that reward structure to get as high as they can. This was going with Splinterlands. That's the big change. We've spoken about that a lot during the year. So Alien Worlds, again, a sort of a fully on-chain game in the same way that Splinterlands is. So everything on Alien Worlds runs on-chain, and it's a sort of mining game. So you're mining out this currency, and you need NFTs to do that. And the better NFTs, the more you can mine, and you can mine on different locations, different planets. You can own NFT, you can own land, and sort of earn a passive income from people who are mining on your land. So it's sort of been steadied around 200,000 daily active unique wallets. Again, unclear how many bots are on there. I imagine probably are some, which is a bit of a meaningless statement. Clearly there are bots there. We don't know the percentage. And what's happened with Alien Worlds is it's brought into more functionality. So towards the end of the year, it added its sort of DAO structure, or started its sort of DAO structure, these sort of planets. There's these planets where you mine out, and now that these planets have sort of take control of a sort of treasury, which they can use for various things. And we're starting to see some sort of additional functionality. They also have a grant system like many blockchain games have. So a third party sort of game went live using some of their NFTs. So a very simple sort of battle game, almost like a trading card game. Very simple version of that. Without getting too locked down into sort of causality and correlation, to me at least, it would seem that the last sort of quarter of Alien Worlds picking up was because there was more functionality in the game than there previously had been. We had a few peaks, even peaking over 300,000 here, but ending the year sort of pretty much where it started. And I put this one in Hooked in yellow. It's sort of not really a game in some respects. It's a bit like some of these sort of games. It's not certainly not a move to earn game. There's games like Stepan and Walken, which are sort of games, very simple. Sort of, they're almost like token reward structure games with NFTs, and if you buy NFTs, you can get these rewards, and maybe you can breed things, and they're sort of based around activity. They're sort of very lightweight gamified systems, I suppose. And Hooked is sort of one of those. It's like a sort of like learn to earn, what would be the way? Learn to earn sort of structure. It's a mobile game running on the Binance chain. Went live in Indonesia, and then other places as well. And it's just sort of very simple. It's not very clear, as with a lot of these sort of games, quite how sustained it is. And you can kind of see it has this very big sort of pickup. So at one point, well, a couple of days over 400,000 daily active unique wallets, and then the whole thing sort of comes back down. Still over 100,000, but it's only been going really since sort of October, so only a few months. And this is something we tend to see. This is the trajectory we tend to see with blockchain games. Anything where there's reward structure, then either people are trying it out to see, are they just, what sort of experience is this, or people trying out, can I bot it? Can I? How much do I have to invest to get money out, particularly in the early stages? So it's a trajectory we sort of tend to see. And we sort of see whether these games can find a sustained sort of position, which you could argue sort of Alien Worlds and Splinterlands, have found a sustained position. Whether they can, as products that have been around for a year, sort of grow from 200,000 to 300,000 to 400,000, not quite clear. So anyway, these are sort of the three biggest games at the end of the year, at least. So this is the second of our three graphs. And these are sort of games that are sort of smaller. So we can still see, there's a peak here for Axie Infinity. So on-chain hit 400,000 in March. So Axie Infinity, we sort of know the trajectory here. So very popular at the start of the year. So off-chain wise, about 2.5 million daily active players. Wallet-wise, sort of a tenth of that. People coming on and either breeding Axies or trading Axies or getting SLP token. But we know Axie had this sort of year where they were transitioning between the classic Axie game and the new Origins game, and we've basically seen on-chain activity drop sort of way down. So started about 250,000 daily active unique wallets, now down to sort of sort of 10,000-ish. And obviously we sort of wait to see what happens with the new version of the game, which is going out on into soft launch on the Google Play next year, but I'm not quite sure what on-chain stuff is in there. So we'll have to see what happens with Axie. But clearly Axie is building a whole bunch of other stuff, so would be too soon to write it off, I would suggest. We have Farmer's World, this sort of again fairly simple sort of mining game running on the Wax blockchain. It's gone through various sort of trajectories, so up as high as 150,000 daily active unique wallets sort of June, drop back down again to sort of just over 50,000-60,000. Been some controversy about, again, with bots and with all these sort of games where it's very sort of simple and you're sort of earning these tokens. It's not sort of very clear what the long-term sort of goal is if you can't continue to build sort of progress on those. So it's not shot up, but it's not really it's not sustained itself either. Well, I suppose it's gone back to where it started from, I suppose. So there we go. Upland. Again, started the year about sort of 60,000-70,000. This is a mobile Monopoly style game where you sort of own locations in the real world. It's not location based, but you own buildings in the real world, and you sort of move around the world, and there's a whole economy working within there. It's a bit difficult because it works on mobile devices, so it's sort of a hybrid crypto game really. It has a real money system rather than a crypto system. And it's sort of, they've built out a lot of structure in there, but it's sort of declined in terms of the daily activity, at least on-chain activity. As in with all these games, there can be activity that isn't on-chain, so you have to be a little bit careful of what you're actually measuring. So maybe more people are actually playing this game, but in terms of the on-chain stuff. And then finally, just put this one in, Planet 9, running on the Polygon blockchain. I actually don't know too much about this game, sort of a mining game. It seems to be a bit like sort of Alien Worlds, I suppose, but it's sort of taken off in the last month or so. So, over 60,000 daily active unique wallets. We'll sort of see where it ends up. It took a lot of time to build up there. As I say, you tend to find with blockchain games that they tend to have this sort of explosive peak, often around sort of viral marketing and or virality and sort of tokenomics. Although Planet 9 has been around for a long time, so it's sort of been available for a while, but I'll have to look into that a bit more detail, but put it on there for completion's sake. And then some of these smaller games, so these are ones that definitely have this sort of volatile sort of launch period. So Pegaxi at the start of the year is this sort of racing breeding game. It's sort of they're not horses, but sort of a fantasy horse, sort of a futuristic horse racing game where you're going to be breeding them. So a bit of Axie. It was seen one of these games, one of the many games at the start of 2022. So there's like Pegaxi and Thetan Arena and Cyball and a few of these other ones where people were, very expectant that it was going to be the next Axie. And it got up to whatever, 40,000 daily active unique wallets running on the Polygon blockchain. Then they had some problems with their economy, or it wasn't really their economy; it was more their game design. And we can see, a pretty severe sort of decline since then. And again, this is, not quite the same level as Axie, but there is the idea that these sort of play to earn games. I mean, this was definitely a play to earn game. And once the economies blow up, they're very hard to recover. You sort of have to totally rebuild the game. So we'll see how they get on, if at all. And we have these other ones towards the end of the year. So 2 on Flow, Trickshot Blitz in red, and Solitaire Blitz, both from Joyride games, both mobile games running on Flow. So quite explosive growth periods when these mobile games came out. But we can see there's sort of they're both sort of quite casual games. Obviously, Solitaire games quite sort of casual, and Trickshot Blitz is a sort of a pool snooker type game. And yeah, they obviously haven't sustained because they're sort of dropping down. So this is sort of a difficulty. And again, I think people, to a degree, have sort of, as we're finding out, you have to design blockchain games in a slightly different way, or a very different way to other games, just to build them up from the bottom rather than sort of dropping them in from the top, I think. And I think we'll see how that works in 2023 when a lot more games come out, and if they've been a bit slower to sort of build up their launch and not have these sort of big, enormous launches where you're suddenly, everyone's piling in and then there's nothing to sustain it, but rather, spend your time over months and even years sort of building these things up and building a very strong community that will adapt to what's going on, and adapt to some of the obviously market conditions, which we've not really mentioned. Obviously the market since May has been or it's been very down for crypto, and these games are not sort of games that have very strong sort of expensive NFTs or anything like that, but obviously there is a sentiment going on here. Final one here is Benji Bananas. So this is the one in blue. So this is actually sort of interesting the way that this is a Web 2 game, very simple sort of very nice actually physics trajectory game where you swing this Benji Banana monkey through the trees, trying to get a high score. And what happened here was if you had there was an NFT, if you had that NFT, you could start earning these tokens called primate tokens, and that was associated with the ape coin. Again, it was a sort of a simple sort of add-on to a Web 2 game, and with those sort of things, you get these sort of high spikes depending on what's going on with the token and how you could collect those tokens and how often they were being issued. But this is sort of very hybrid. It's almost like a token distribution model rather than a sort of heavily integrated NFT into a game or a token into a game. And the primate token, I don't think has been, I would describe it as not being very successful in terms of basically there's no reason to own it, so people just sort of accumulate it and then sell it. So this is very much the trajectory we see. So again, with blockchain, I would say in 2022 really have been some interesting use cases. So certainly I play Alien Worlds and Splinterlands. They are interesting games, but they are not necessarily mass market games in the sense that people will sort of pick them up and go, oh, what a great game, never seen this before. I mean, you won't have seen a game like those before, but there's a bit of education involved. A lot of these other ones don't really have a strong enough game concept, is my feeling, and adding tokenomics to that has proven to be a negative addition rather than a positive addition. But I thought I'd close with one further graph, so a bit more complicated here. So DeFi Kingdom. So DeFi Kingdom is actually sort of quite a nice game. Again, not super deep. A DeFi sort of based. It's not really an RPG, but it's a sort of DeFi based game. Well, I suppose it is RPGs where you have these characters and they sort of have do missions and they collect tokens and you can level them up. And there's a whole DeFi sort of stuff, thing in there where you can sort of do liquidity pools, and it's sort of a bit of an education thing in there as well, and you can have land and things like that. Anyway, so this was running on the Harmony blockchain. So at the start of the year, 20,000 daily active unique wallets. In fact, it was the most popular game on the Harmony blockchain, pretty much the only thing running on Harmony. And we can, it was not an experienced team, but a sort of solid team, quite committed and quite transparent team, as it turned out. But basically, what happened was the Harmony blockchain got hacked. Its bridge got hacked. It lost tons of value, and as well as sort of the general sentiment around blockchain games and tokens. The Jewel token, which was the underlying token for DeFi Kingdoms, went down, whatever it was, 96-97%, I think. And DeFi Kingdoms had been quite successful in 2021 in terms of the value of these items had got quite expensive. So it had this sort of like existential problem in terms of the internal economy and an external part of the blockchain. And so what they decided to do is they moved to Avalanche, or they basically had one version of the game running on Harmony, and then another sort of, you could think of it as a shard really, another version of the game happened to be the Ice Kingdom. So you had a normal kingdom, and then you had the Ice Kingdom running on Avalanche, and that was the DeFi Kingdoms chain subnet, if you want to get technical about it. But so you sort of had the game running on two blockchains, but it wasn't the same game. They were sort of separate experiences, although there were bridges between them. But you couldn't have this, your character had to be in one or the other sort of thing. So sort of interesting sort of scenario. And obviously there was a big peak when this thing launched. So over peaking at 50,000 daily active unique wallets when both these things go live. But basically what happens over time as the token price, as the Harmony problems sort of build up, is the Harmony, even though that's the main, most people are playing on Harmony, people just sort of stop playing because it's just sort of, they may have lost money, can't sell the stuff off. And then basically what the team do in the summer is they basically say, we're going to come off Harmony and we're going to keep running on our own version, on our own subnet for Avalanche. So the DeFi Kingdoms chain is still operating. So you sort of see that the Harmony numbers actually go pretty much to nothing. So at the moment, on the last day of the year, there were 92 wallets running on the Harmony version of the game. And I don't think it's even supported anymore. I don't think there's liquidity or anything in there, so I don't know what those people are doing. I don't know if even you can get tokens off there into the other tokens. Don't know. But, so basically, that's gone from like 20,000 at the start of the year to 0. We've seen at the end of the year there are about 5,000 unique wallets running on the Avalanche version. So those are people you can move your tokens across. And then the new version of the game has started going on the Clayton blockchain, which is a South Korean blockchain from Kakao. So those, as far as I know, those assets, the original assets, have been reissued. But obviously, Kakao Clayton is a different blockchain. It's not a very popular blockchain. There's not much running on it at the moment. DeFi Kingdom's got a grant to operate on it, but if you compare the two, you've got you're under 10,000 at the end of the year compared to 20,000 at the start of the year. So that could be seen as a negative, that this sort of game has sort of declined, and people have sort of the value that they had in the game has gone down. That's the same for every blockchain game, I suppose. But on the flip side, you would say this is a game that if it hadn't have done something would have be dead now. But it's actually made two decisions. It's actually made one here to have a sort of a companion version of the game, so you could people could play both of those. And now it's actually made us whether it's the right decision or not to go for Clayton. I guess we'll wait and see. Some people thought yes, some people thought no. But it sort of shows that these games have communities that can sort of make sort of decisions that other games don't have to make. And because obviously these are, you're not paying for servers or anything, you're running these things on blockchains. Once you sort of make the engineering decisions to move your smart contracts over and reissue assets and stuff, the game can just continue. But it's not just because you're doing that doesn't mean you're taking your fan base over. But you could sort of say from about here, when basically people stop playing on the Harmony, on the Harmony version, adding Clayton has sort of added 3,000 people. I mean, maybe people playing on the Clayton and Avalanche. Hard to judge, but I think this is a small sort of positive point that blockchain games if they have a committed developer base, which in this case they do, and also a certain percentage of the player base is also committed. So maybe saying, I don't know, 30% of the original people playing at the start of the year are still playing and have made the sort of decision to transition to these other blockchains, and that's interesting. We just don't see that really in non-blockchain games, because there's no sort of ownership model, and two, they're not open sourced in this way, and three, there'll be sort of people will be suing each other and all that sort of stuff. So that's a positive point. There's not a lot of positive in blockchain games in 2022 in terms of like overt sort of numbers or number go up or value go up. That just hasn't happened for anything in blockchain this year. But I think this sort of stuff with DeFi Kingdom shows the concept is at least working, even if it is for a sort of hardcore subset of people who play this game, and I do actually think that is a positive, and sort of shows that the concept of you own your stuff, even if people are putting it onto different chains, these things can continue to survive, and hopefully we'll see DeFi Kingdoms growing in 2023. Okay, thanks for watching. See you again soon.